Bears fans, sports betting season is in full force right now because all the sports are playing right now. And you need a sports book with integrity and one that has longevity like BetUS. BetUS have been pioneers in the sportsbook industry for nearly 3 decades, thriving and paying you, the loyal customer fan base. What's great about BetUS is they have loads of bonuses. Join now at betus.com and receive a 125% sign-up bonus by using code Chicago125. BetUS has all your NFL games with team and player props and loads of NFL futures and odds. BetUS gives you plenty of options. In addition to the NFL, you can bet on college football games, PGA golf, UFC matches, the NBA, and more. They have every bet type imaginable, and the BetUS mobile platform is easy to use with full betting options. Follow my lead and get your phone online and social sports betting partner with integrity and longevity like BetUS. And cash in on your 125% sign-up bonus at betus.com with our code Chicago125. BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS. What's going on, Bears fans, and welcome to another episode of the Chicago Audible Podcast. I'm your host for today's show, Nicholas Moriano, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mason West, who's just back from a mini vacation. Mason, tell everybody where you went and how it was.
I was lucky enough to go to Disney World. So we were there for 6 days, 2 travel days, 4 days in the middle, 1 day at each park. It was tons of fun. 85 degrees pretty much the whole time. What was it? The second day we were there, we were at Animal Kingdom, and on and off rain afternoon. So like that one was a little more wet, but other than that, great time. It was awesome. They did a good job with COVID stuff. Felt pretty safe the whole time with that, and I am exhausted. Did about 30,000 steps every day because we're ridiculous. We just hop from ride to ride. I think with the new system they have, it's called Genie Plus. You got like 4 rides done in the first hour, but like you have to be good about like kind of going around the park. So yeah, I'm gonna need to do some recovery myself and get ready for Sunday being up in that press box.
Well, and Mason, you were just telling me you got back not too long ago and you had things that you're already doing. So hey, I just appreciate you being on here and helping me, preview this very anticipated Bears and 49ers game. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like I said, I think I landed around like 4:15, and then I had an interview with some Black health professionals of Temple University. Shout out to them. And yeah, I couldn't let you do this alone. You and Will had to deal with that post game with the Buccaneers. You didn't have my saltiness on there, so I had to, I help you out a little bit today.
There's plenty of saltiness to go around, even though you weren't there, Mason. But you missed. There's a good game to miss, and you actually said that I think on the preview podcast, so you already know. I was at a wedding this past weekend, so I got to see my buddy Nick, one of my core group of friends from high school, get married. So really fun time for me. As I was getting back from the wedding, I was still recovering. So by the time that game was going on, I'm like, oh, we're checking out about after the first quarter. Perfect. So it kind of worked out for me too. But now, Mason, we are moving on from that 38-3 blowout loss, not even close at any point from the Buccaneers, and now we're going to what I would say is a more manageable game against the 2-4 San Francisco 49ers. So Mason, maybe just to even start things off, what's just your initial perception of the 49ers? It's a team that was playing in the Super Bowl not too long ago, and now they're in a state of panic. And we were just talking before we even went live, they're kind of similar to the Bears.
This is like literally that Spider-Man meme where they're just pointing at each other, and it's like, what's the difference, right? I mean, they both have this weird, veteran rookie QB scenario that was going on. Obviously, the Bears is more settled at this point. They have injuries across the board to running backs. The defense really carries the team. In theory, they have an offensive head coach. But like you said, the 49ers have been on a downward spiral for a while since the Super Bowl, which, by the way, they did lose. So, I mean, it's nice to make it there, but they haven't won since then. They're, I think, 18-36 since. The injury bug has been huge for them. There's questions on the turf and if that's an issue, but to be fair, it's every season there's someone major that's hurt for them, if not multiple people. So you got to question what's going on with the practices and the training staff and all that stuff too. But yeah, with all that similarity that is there, it's going to be an interesting game because it really does boil down to I think a lot of it is going to be that quarterback play who plays better, right? Garoppolo has not necessarily been doing great. And also, I don't know if you saw this, but I think the line moved from 3.5 points to 3 points once Nagy was no longer going to be the head coach. So maybe they just really think Chris Tabor, who is the acting head coach, is worth an extra half a point. I don't know.
It was interesting. I was listening to a part of his press conference today, him acting as the head coach, and I kind of like Chris Tabor, how he approaches things. It's he's got a certain, I guess, attitude with him, and I like it. It's just a breath of fresh air of how he kind of approaches press conferences. But yeah, I did see that line move. I'm like, man, that says a lot about Matt Nagy. But yeah, when I think of the 49ers, I also think of a team that's kind of lost their identity. When you watch that what was it, the Sunday night game just between them and the Colts, it was at Levi Stadium, it was raining, and the first drive of the game looked so promising for the 49ers. They take it and score. They're rushing the football effectively, and get a couple of passes from Jimmy Garoppolo. And then as that game kind of transpired, it was the Colts that were rushing and displaying that physicality against the 49ers, a team that's been known for that over the years. So it was just weird to kind of see it flipped. And I think Darius Leonard, linebacker for the Colts, he had this perfect quote that kind of encapsulates what I was just talking about. He said that they did a great job, the 49ers, especially on the first drive, utilizing misdirection and putting us, the Colts defense, in bad position to make plays. I was glad they kind of went away from that. So there's been Kyle Shanahan's been a little bit on the hot seat as well, just for his play calling, and obviously where the team's at 2-4. So it's really two desperate teams, Mason, that are going to be playing in Chicago. And desperate could make a team dangerous. And this is 4 straight losses for the 49ers. It's who, and we'll talk about it, who ends up, winning this match and all of that. But it's an interesting matchup, but it's also one that, hey, I'm not like, yeah, we're going to see the Bears and 49ers on Sunday. It's kind of the exact opposite at this point. But you know what, Mason? I say we just kind of get into this. And when we're talking about this Bears team, and obviously, there wasn't much offense that happened in that game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What are just some takeaways on offense that you have that you would like to see the Bears improve upon? We can really take this offensive discussion anywhere, because there really is nowhere to really start, because there's no offense to build upon.
That's the thing. It's just like you said, the 49ers have lost their identity. It's like the Bears have never found their identity. Like, they don't have one. And so far, the little identity that they do have, which has been running the ball, seems like it's been forced upon them. It's like Nagy is swallowing this pill that he hates. And I mean, I get it. When I play Madden, I don't love to just spam the run. I like to air it out. I mean, same, you're playing pickup football. You're not handing the ball off constantly, but it's like, what do you want to be, and how do you be multiple off of what you want to be? And there's been all these reports recently that, and some people who are, I think, really involved in either previous offenses or currently what they have going on, are talking about how Nagy's pretty much taken what Andy Reid had and has never really moved off of it, right? He was taught this offense, added maybe a couple of his own flair, a little bit of flair to it, but then really has not evolved. And once the NFL kind of found him out a little bit, right, which we saw with 2018, it was like, oh, this is new, this is awesome, Santa's sleigh, all these fun trick plays, which those are gone now, because they're rarely in the red zone. But it just has changed so much, and so much of it boils down to help out your rookie quarterback. Like, you have, yes, COVID's a thing, and your tackle who was supposed to be there, your swing tackle who's now, yes, I mean, you lost Evan Jenkins, you lost Larry Borum, you lost Jermaine Ifedi, you're on Wilkinson, who day of, is on COVID protocol, which we can have a whole conversation about what the heck is going on with the Bears, the COVID stuff. But then you have Latavius Simmons, and you find out he didn't practice at all there. And it's like, so what would have happened if Wilkinson got hurt in the game? I mean, you have to plan for that. And it just seems like they really got stuck on this whole, we need Alex Bars available to do that extra, the 6th lineman thing. But in the entirety of what I saw when I went back and watched it, I don't think they did that at all when Simmons was at tackle. I don't think there was a single play that Bars was put in as that eligible lineman. So it's like, what were you saving Bars for if you're not going to do that either? And it has to start there, because, yes, Justin can't throw those picks. Yes, Justin can't fumble the ball like that. Yes, this wide receiver needs separation. But he needs time to throw the dang ball. I mean, there was one play he had, 2.97 seconds, I think, that Ted McGeehan article talked about. what the heck are you doing? That's a coach's decision to not let Simmons practice at all and to not have Barnes at right tackle. That's just that's blasphemous.
I like where you took this, Mason, and just to kind of backtrack a little about what's going on at Halisol. Like, I'm scheduled to go there tomorrow, and I'll tell you right now, it's not certain yet because of everything that's going on with the COVID protocols. They're like, Nick, stay tuned. Like, okay, that's great for my schedule. I'll just stay tuned. But yeah, there's been an outbreak, and there was another positive test today, and they asked Tabor, or if it was player or coach, and I think it was Adam Hogue that clarified it was a coach. Don't know exactly who. So this virus is definitely in Hallis Hall. Maybe it's best I don't go there. Who knows? But it's like, yes, that is an issue. And now on top of all the other issues that they have on offense, and I'll kind of take it another thing that's not happening. Well, we're not seeing an identity, but we're also not playing to the Bears aren't playing to Justin Fields' strengths. There's been a lot of talk about play action passes, right? And right now, Justin Fields is using play action, or being called to use play action passes on 26.6% of his dropbacks. And according to Dan Orlovsky, I'm sure everybody by now have seen the video. Bears have been using less and less of it over the past 3 weeks. And it does you look at the games, you look at Tampa Bay, you're not going to be using a lot of play action when you're down by more than 30 points. Green Bay, yeah, you were in that game. You relatively could have used that. And then what was it? The Raiders. So it's just weird that it's Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence have double the attempts, but off play action passes, Fields has a 65.7% completion percentage, which is the highest outside of all of the other concepts, outside of screens. Of course, can't hit a screen pass, then probably shouldn't be playing quarterback. But 7.5 yards per attempt as well. That's his highest. He has a touchdown off of play action passes, and guess what? No interceptions, which Justin Fields has given the ball to the other team a few times this season. So, and the other big thing, only 6 times he's been sacked compared to the other 16 that he has been sacked when not using play action. So it's just weird, Mason. Like, and he was asked about it. What was it, yesterday or 2 days ago, about, hey, how comfortable do you feel using play action RPOs? He's like, it's been something that I've been doing since college. I know how to run. I know how to execute on the move. It's like, why aren't they implementing it then? So again, that goes back to the coaching staff, whatever game plan is really being implemented there, which even though Nagy, and I had to, explain this to my girlfriend yesterday, he's like, why is Nagy getting all the blame? He's not calling the plays anymore. His fingerprints are all over that dang playbook. That's why. And so the plays that are being called are still being brought from Nagy, Laser, and then, it's just ultimately Laser calling them. So there's a lot of blame to be going around, but that was just another thing that I wanted to bring up. And for the next offensive topic, Mason, and obviously we can talk about it together here. Khalil Herbert has just been such a breath of fresh air. Like, I think just, from this past week with how the Bears lost, the COVID protocol, like, I had to wear a shirt that literally says "Sweet Home" because it's been the sour taste, and then the pinwheel cookies. I don't know if people know about those, but freaking amazing, and they don't sell them anymore, which is so sad. But Khalil Herbert has provided that sweetness in a sense to the Bears, and what the offense is kind of doing because of his running style. It just kind of fits with what the Bears need. But like you said, Mason, it almost seems like it's being forced because the passing game is not existent.
Yeah, and it's led to so many really interesting conversations, right? You floating around the Bears Twitterverse, people talking about trading David Montgomery and can you just ride out Herbert and all that stuff. Like, honestly, I don't know. I'm split on that whole conversation just because, yes, I mean, Montgomery's amazing. I love Monty and what he can bring. We also have to remember where he was picked and if you could get a 3rd round pick out of him, a 2nd round pick out of him, do you bat your eyes at that, knowing what's the shelf life of a traditional running back? Like, if Herbert can fill in, but at the same time, this has only been 3 games for Herbert, so you don't want to necessarily just sell the farm in terms of just getting rid of Montgomery, knowing that, hey, it's only been 3 games. But I digress. It's like you said, they're not really catering to Justin's strengths because he steps up to the line and has to diagnose right where the blitz is coming from, what coverage they're in, all these things. And then when they quickly shift out of that, move from a cover 1 to a cover 2, something like that, they've hidden what the blitz is. He has to get the ball out very, very fast. As a rookie, that is hard to do. They're very exotic looks. So, like you're saying, why not take some players out of it? Why not have an instance where you have a play action, which in theory might holds a linebacker, roll away from it, only have half the field that you have to deal with, instead of dropping back with 6-man protection, where also Herbert being a rookie running back, right? He has to also diagnose where that blitz is coming from, trying to get across maybe the formation, go to the other side because you did a play action for the first time in a while. And now he's got all the way to the left side because you were faking it right. You expect either Justin to tell him that or for him to see it. That's a lot on 2 rookies' plays to be able to do that. You as the coaching staff need to make it much simpler so that they just step up and act, boom, 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 and then they can keep moving forward. Because again, and we keep harping on this, as we know, Justin didn't get a lot, if any, reps with the ones. So he doesn't know exactly where Al Robinson is going to be. He doesn't know exactly where Darnell Mooney is going to be on that play call. We've talked about it before. Where are the slants? Haven't seen that a lot. No idea. Quick shout out to Butkiss Stats. Had this really great chart actually that compared a bunch of the rookie quarterbacks and what it looked like to have on first down, second down, third down. What was the distance, pass percentage, pass success rate. The Bears are passing on 38% of first downs. Compare that to 54, 59, and 53% for Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and Mac Jones. So defenses pretty much know, all right, first down, they're running it. Let's just sell out to stop the run. You flip that over to third, fourth down, the distance that Justin's currently having to convert is an average of 9.07 yards. Comparing that to, for the other three, 6.79, 6.90, 6.97. That 3-yard distance is huge. And that's because, hey, first down, let's run it. Oh, great. It's a gain of 1 or 2. Okay, cool. Now we're just stuck on this long second down. It's, again, be multiple. You have to be creative in terms of what's actually happening. And now when you have that 9.07 distance on third and fourth down for Justin, and you're passing now on 69% of those downs, which again is the least somehow compared to the other 3, and the pass success is only 22% compared to 40% for Mac Jones, 35% for Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson on the Jets has a higher pass success rate on third and fourth down than Justin Fields. And I don't necessarily put that on Justin. I put that on the plays that you're designing, the fact that you're having to go 9 yards to get a dang first down on third down. You're ruining this kid. Do stuff to help him. And it's amazing if they finally that Justin and the receiver said, enough is enough. We're going to have our own Zoom sessions and basically watch plays and say, no, we're changing these routes because they're garbage.
Let's take it upon ourselves to fix the problems that our coaches can't, which that shouldn't. I know that's great to hear from your rookie quarterback, but man, he shouldn't be asked or should do that in his first season. But that's the Bears. That's how they run things. But I'm glad you brought up Ted Nugent from The Athletic because he had a great breakdown of Justin Fields. And this line got to me. And you guys need to go check that out. Get a subscription to The Athletic. They're great. All the people there are great. Look up Ted Nugent. He wrote in here, he can't process like a rookie. He has to process like a veteran to make this offense work. And why is that the expectation from Justin Fields, who didn't get those first team reps like you were saying, Mason, but yet he is running an offense that it realistically is still catered to Andy Dalton. And an indication of that, because Ted Nugent also went back and tracked the RPOs in that game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he said against the Buccaneers, he only charted one option run. And it wasn't very well designed, he also put. So that blows my mind. Like, why is it that, one, you're inhibiting Justin Fields from utilizing this in his game? And it's, again, he was asked about utilizing RPOs earlier this week, and he says he feels very comfortable with them. One time against the Super Bowl champs, against a defense that flies around, knowing that you have tackles that are not going to be able to block for a very long time, don't you want them to have that option to mitigate their speed off the edge, to read off a guy and then make that decision? It doesn't make sense, Mason. None of this makes sense. And now we're week 8, and we're having very similar conversations that we've been having for years with the Matt Nagy offense. And again, a Matt Nagy offense, what is that exactly? One that doesn't work. That's all I can tell you for certain. That's what a Matt Nagy offense is. All right, Mason, we're getting a lot off our chest here. And just to, realistically, and again, what do the Bears need to do offensively to put together a good game plan? Maybe it helps that Matt Nagy might not be there, but what do you think that the Bears need to do to create a game plan? And people in the chat, please chime in. What do you think the Bears need to do to have a successful game plan against the 49ers and their defense?
Well, and one thing I wanted to highlight too is one that they do need to solidify that line. They need to have an offensive line that's going to block in. I believe it was Cliff had said that, yes, Borum, he was back at practice, which is great. Had some reps at right tackle, it looked like. And there's reports that Tevin Jenkins, and by reports, I mean Jason Peters, who apparently is just breaking news all the time. Let's get Jason Peters a credential already. Tevin Jenkins is a couple weeks away. Make sure, first of all, everyone slow down. Remember, first of all, they are both rookies. Second of all, Tevin Jenkins was supposed to play left tackle, had the back injury, and now is potentially who knows where he's going to be. Larry Borum did come in and looked good against the Rams. He only played 15 snaps. That's 22% of them before he had to leave, before he got hurt. So let's not put too much on stock in that. So knowing that, and knowing we have to solidify the line, we need to get back to using that sixth lineman. I don't know who's going to be at right tackle, so let's just say for the sake of argument, it's Alex Bars, since that's kind of what they ended with last week. So now you don't have him as that extra lineman. So who do you have on the roster that could do that? Is there someone that can step into that role? Significantly more usage of the tight ends, right, to be able to block, to be able to chip. And when I mean chip, I mean like really chip. We've seen too many times where it's this half shoulder that doesn't really get a good piece. And you got Nick Bosa, obviously, over there going against Jason Peters, which, I mean, he is just a man among boys, it seems like sometimes. And I mean, by Nick Bosa, so you got to help out. So solidify that line. Moving on from that, more RPO and better designed RPOs. Like the one that I know you were talking about, like I believe Ted had said that there were 3 unblocked people essentially on that run. Like, what is that play design? Like, you're not supposed to, that's ridiculous. And you got to have that. You got to have some routes that make sense. You got to have, hopefully they practice scramble drills a little bit this week, because the wide receivers need to be held accountable for their garbage scramble drills. Like, they're not moving. If you're far away, you're supposed to run close. If you're close, you're supposed to run far away. If you're right, you're supposed to run left, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of those, none of those things are happening. Like that one pass where Justin Fields overthrew Allen Robinson. Yes, that was not a good throw. Let's be real. That was on Justin as much as anybody else. But at the same time, Allen Robinson was not exactly run into a spot that was going to really help his quarterback either. So that has to be a part of it. And when you are able to run for 100 yards on a team that was only giving up, I believe it was an average of something like 50 yards on the Buccaneers, commit to that play action. Like you were just saying, Nick, like use that play action, cut the field in half, play action right, roll out left, screen pass, tight end screens, running back screens. When was the last time we've seen like a running back screen? I feel like I'm a broken record. I say this every single week. Like they're so useful. They did it to Leonard Fournette constantly in that game. I think he had 3 catches or something like that. Like that. So it's the same story every week. It's tough. It is. It's hard.
It's tough, Mason. And maybe it wasn't fair of me to ask for a game plan, because we're just saying the same thing. Just do it. It's hard to do when you don't have a lineman. But I will say another thing that I want to add to what kind of worked in that game, again, against the 49ers and Colts. Yes, the weather was definitely a factor. But what the Bears need to take advantage of is that 49ers secondary that loves, Mason, and I mean loves, to commit pass interference penalties. In that game alone, they had 49ers committed 5 pass interferences, and they, for 97 defensive penalty yards, in this season they've committed 14 pass interferences. So if you can't connect on the deep ball, and if maybe the wide receivers are in the vicinity and running their routes correctly, and it's not necessarily there, throw it up. Give your guy a chance, because these 49ers DBs lack discipline. And they showed that against Carson Wentz and the Colts on Sunday night, and they lost 30-18. And again, committed 5 pass interference calls, big ones too. So the Bears, they need to look at that and try to see if they can, one, of course, complete the pass. It'd be great to actually complete a deep ball or any of those things, but give your wide receivers a chance. That's on the wide receivers to, give Justin Fields a window, just a sideline to throw to, but it's also on Fields to put the ball in an area where these wide receivers, tight ends, I don't want to get, too far ahead of myself, to go up and potentially get the ball. But obviously another thing is just, you really got to commit to the run. The Colts ran that ball 33 times, 148 yards, and Jonathan Taylor was looking pretty good. My brother had him as fantasy teams. Like, I won already. I'm like, yeah, he did. But they need to bring that physicality, and maybe you can do that. Having Alex Bars in there, just commit to it. And Herbert just getting in a rhythm. So if you do those things, and look, this is not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you guys. This is not a Super Bowl team. This is the desperate 2-4 San Francisco 49ers. So yes, obviously the Bears cannot overlook anybody. They'll beat themselves any given day of the week, but I think there's going to be opportunities for maybe, like Justin Fields was saying, he said he could just feel it, that it's going to be a breakout game for the offense. And he asked for an explanation. He's like, no, I don't got it. I could just feel it. We'll see if that happens. All right, Mason, is there anything else on offense that you wanted to touch on? Again, not a lot to build off of last week, but anything else you want to touch on?
No, there's, like you said, there's not a ton there. It's how much you can almost tell when Bill Lazor was talking this week that he was kind of annoyed with the narrative and a little fed up. Like you said, Nick, if you have a pile of plays sitting in front of you on the play sheet, and let's, for the sake of argument, 50 of them are in the gun with no movement from your wide receivers, no motion to identify what the coverage is, and then you only have this small pile of here's my 3 RPOs and here's my 5 play action. I'm not saying those are the numbers. I'm saying let's just, for the sake of argument, there's not a lot you can do with that because you can only call that the same plays so many times. So while Nagy may not be there on Sunday, and while he's not calling plays anymore, this is still his offense. So was he able to this week change it up a bit? Did he allow other people to have more input this week? And this is really also kind of funny. This is the worst situation for Nagy because if they win, it's because he wasn't there. That's the narrative. If they lose, it's because, he was still a mastermind in this whole team, and he's the reason why they lost. So this week is a lose-lose for Nagy if he's not able to be there.
That's a good point. So I guess we'll see. I wonder if they tie. It falls to the negative. What am I talking about? But yeah, it is an interesting way of looking at it for Matt Nagy, who hope he's doing well. Obviously testing positive for COVID, but we're going to transition to this Bears defense and obviously this 49ers offense. But before we do, I have to tell you about our partnership with Owen. If you're like me, going to the gym is a crucial part of my schedule. It's a place to let loose and just decompress, especially after embarrassing Bears losses. And after a great workout, it's important to give your body the amino acids it needs to repair and rebuild proteins. And that's why I drink Owen. That's right, Owen, which stands for only what you need. Owen is a 100% plant-based protein company, and all of their products are plant-based, free of artificial ingredients, and are allergen-friendly. Plus, Owen uses high-quality and carefully selected ingredients to make all of its products easily digestible, like their dark chocolate protein shake that has 20 grams of protein, and it's my personal favorite. And I first heard about Owen from Chicago Bears quarterback Justin Fields, who follows a plant-based diet. Get 20% off your first purchase with code TCA20 at liveowen.com. That's 20% off your first purchase at liveowen.com. And remember to use the code TCA20. Join me and Justin Fields and try Owen. Only what you need. All right, welcome back to the Chicago Audible. Here to talk about this Bears defense, this 49ers offense. And Mason, look, obviously the offense had its struggles. Was terrible against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but the offense wasn't much better whatsoever. Where do you even want to take this discussion? Like, there was the red zone with the Bears defense was obviously horrible. Tampa Bay was able to do what they wanted. They got matchups that they liked, just little things too. What Will and I were talking about in the post-game show, let's motion in Chris Godwin and have him lined up against Danny Trevathan in the red zone. Who's going to win that matchup? You already know. And it's like when you have just one-on-one opportunities like Mike Evans. Hey, he beat Jalen Johnson with a perfect throw, a perfect catch. Like, there's nothing really you could do about it. But whatever Tampa Bay really wanted to do, they were able to. So, Mason, where do you even want to start this discussion on this Bears defense?
To start with the defense, you almost have to go back to the offense for a half second because so many times with the turnovers and what was going on, the defense was on a very short field. And I was frustrated with that a little bit because I remember one of the props I took was that Tom was going to throw for over 300 passing yards. And it's hard to do that when you score 21 points with, only 30 yards to go. So if the offense can give the defense a little more cushion, because we saw that for the most part when the defenses had to defend an entire field, right? When opposing offenses have had to march down 90, 80, arguably even 70 yards at times, they've been able to do the whole bend but don't break thought process where they're giving up field goals or even maybe sometimes nothing instead of touchdowns. But last week they didn't even have that option, right? The Buccaneers were banging on the door before they even knew it. And at some point when you get down like you did in that scenario and you're just like, oh, we're back on the field that fast, we have to defend 20, 30 yards. I don't know. I feel like last week was a bit more of an aberration for them because of that. I mean, that's just a mental kick in the nuts, to be quite frank, when you have to do that constantly. And at the end of the day, we do still have Sean Desai, who is, again, a rookie. I keep talking about rookies. Khalil Herbert, Justin Fields, Sean Desai. He's a rookie defensive coordinator. I think he's going to learn from that. I think he's going to see what happened when you motion Chris Godwin in and have Danny Trevathan on him in coverage. And is going to have, is going to have an answer for that, because you do have some pretty fast receivers when it comes to the 49ers. I know Brandon Ayuk has been a little off, and my fantasy team knows that because I took him in almost every league. I think the part of it was that they felt he put on too much weight, especially with the injury he had. Deebo Samuel, another speedster. Mohamed Sanu, while not, he's a little older in years, he can turn on. So you can't necessarily have a Danny Trevathan, an Alec Ogletree, things like that, guard individuals like that. No, they don't have George Kittle, but Dwelly is a capable tight end. He can absolutely step up. So when it comes to what I think you're going to see, it's going to be very different this week. It's going to be much longer fields because I think the offense is going to be a little bit better. So, and you're going to see, like, while the running game is imperative for the 49ers, they've gotten away from it a little bit. Whether it's because of the injuries or just because of just attrition and how that kind of works in the NFL. They're not necessarily sticking to it. So if you're able to take care of those things, you're able to hold that run game in, make Jimmy Garoppolo beat you, which looking in hindsight, like, how happy are you that the Bears didn't trade for Jimmy Garoppolo when that was a whole conversation way back when? If you can do those things, control the run and control that quick game that they have to some of their fast receivers, I think you're going to be able to do okay.
Yeah, you'll be definitely in a good position. I think the one thing that, just watching and unfortunately rewatching that Bears-Bucks game, like, I think what really impacted this defense was the inability to finish the plays in terms of creating sacks. They didn't get any of them, Mason. And obviously, there was no Robert Quinn on the field. Mack, as we know, is most likely not going to play in this game against the 49ers due to that foot injury. And I think, look, not to take anything away from Tristan Wirfs because he's a good right tackle, but I don't think Mack he's obviously hasn't been himself as of late. But the Bears, when they aren't able to consistently finish those plays with sacks, you can kind of see what a Hall of Fame quarterback, the greatest of all time, could do to you, dissect the defense and just, pick apart when he wants to. But there were some, like, just rewatching it, like, hey, I saw Travis Gibson actually get in there a couple of times where he almost finishes the play with a sack. Even Mario Edwards, who, hopefully has put those personal foul penalties behind him. He got in Brady's face. Of course, most of those plays still ended up being completions, but they were there. So now you're going against Jimmy Garoppolo, who's been indecisive. There's been a lot of heat and discussion about him. And honestly, like, just listening to 49ers podcast, they're waiting for their rookie quarterback to be fully healthy so he can take over in Trey Lance. So it will be interesting to see how the 49ers, kind of manage that. And like how the Bears have, they managed. And now obviously Justin Fields is a starter. But I want to see, what is this Bears pass rush going to be like, Mason, if you don't have Khalil Mack and we don't know anything yet about Robert Quinn? Then you're asking a lot of, Travis Gibson, Sam Kamara, like, who I'm like blanking on guys because Atachu's done for the season. Who else are you bringing up? you need outside edge rushers at this point. So that could be definitely a storyline, but I have a feeling, and again, I just have a feeling, like Justin Fields, that Robert Quinn is going to be able to go this weekend. And I just based off of the did not practices for the second time in a row for Khalil Mack, it's looking like he's definitely going to lean out, especially with the report yesterday from, I think it was Ian Rappaport saying that, yeah, there's a chance he can go on the short-term IR for 3 games. So, yeah, that's definitely something else to just think about here in terms of what this Bears defense is up against. And again, not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, but desperate. One that needs to get on track, and they need, I think, I would think if you're the 49ers, you're going to see if you can establish the run like they did on the first drive against the Colts with Elijah Mitchell. But if they're looking to pass the ball, I think that actually bodes well in the Bears' favor. I want, if anything, I want to see Jimmy Garoppolo beat the Bears defense. If he could do that, then you're just destined to lose, and you're going to end up with a terrible record by the end of this 2021 season. But I think that would actually be, honestly, the best case scenario for the Bears. Now, Mason, I don't have anything solidified for this Bears defense, talking points, notes, because, again, this was a game. You didn't have a lot of defense and played against the Buccaneers. You didn't have a lot of offense played against the Buccaneers. Where is there anything else, any place other than what we've mentioned that you want to take this defensive discussion?
Something that's interesting is that the 49ers are currently ranked 24th in interception rate, meaning they throw a lot of interceptions, which if you look at the Bears numbers, you'd think like, okay, great. This is they can keep getting interceptions like they've been doing. But you have to also remember that 3 of those interceptions came in the Bengals game on 3 straight plays. So those numbers are a little inflated for the Bears, right? I mean, and right, Rokon Smith, Bilal Nichols were some of those people that got interceptions. You haven't seen that out of, as we all know, Eddie Jackson. We haven't seen that from Tashawn Gibson or Tashawn Gibson. DHC has one, which is great, and he graded out great if you go by PFF grades and stuff like that. Obviously, take those with a grain of salt. He had a great game against the Buccaneers. Probably one of the only players on the Bears that had a good game. Kendall Vildor has not gotten one. You got Jalen Johnson has 1 interception. So if there's a game that the secondary is going to wake up, you would imagine it would be this game. But and if you can't turn over a team interception-wise with Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe Trey Lance coming in for a handful of plays, obviously he's limited and questionable and all that. But, there's some clips out there where he looks pretty darn good. I think for the most part, he's limited or questionable more so to keep buying time for development more than anything else. But yeah, if you can't turn this team over through the air, there's not a lot of teams that you can.
No, I agree with that. And another player that said in his press conference, he's just feeling it, was Eddie Jackson. And he was close. God. He was close. He was close, Mason, with one of the passes over the middle from Tom Brady where, hey, he made a good play on Mike Evans, who I think was in the slot. And he talked about it. He's like, yeah, I saw him, fake out and, it slowed him up a bit. He's like, I just got to keep going. But he said, Macy said he's feeling it. He's feeling the interception coming. Be a great game to get it against the 49ers. Again, who I think are prone and a little bit vulnerable at this point in the passing game. But that's, Mason, that's really it for the defense. I think we can get into our subcategories for where this podcast goes towards the second half here. And I think we'll just kind of start with our X Factor. I don't know, Mason, if we establish any name for the game that you made, which if you haven't seen that in the first in last week's preview, you're in for a treat because it's a lot of fun. But first, we're gonna delay it a little bit. We're gonna talk about our X factors on offense and defense. So Mason, I'll throw it over to you for the first one. Who or what is your X factor on offense?
Okay, my X factor on offense is going to be whoever the heck plays right tackle. While yes, you're obviously more worried about Nick Bosa on the edge against Jason Peters. Hopefully, both Peters tends to get beat by a lot of the speed rushes at this point. Like it just seems like he's stumbling over himself. But hopefully, some of the veteran wiles can stabilize that enough. And you need one of the ends to be fine, right? One of your tackles to be fine, so that you can help the other side. As of right now, it's still a question mark. We don't know who's going to be at right tackle, whether it's going to be an Alex Bars, whether they're comfortable enough with Borum's health and also the limited practices that he's been able to have, because everything then feeds off of it. Like I could easily say Justin Fields, I could easily say Khalil Herbert, I could easily say Allen Robinson, but if they're getting beat off that right edge just immediately, like we saw it through when Latavius Simmons was playing, the rest of it doesn't matter. So to me, that's where it has to start.
I'll take it in a very similar direction for my X factor on offense. It's going to be, I think Bill Lazor, especially if Matt Nagy is not there. And look, again, we'll have to see how that all plays out. But it's really given what he's going to have, whatever this game plan is. And like we were just talking about earlier, Matt Nagy clearly has his fingerprints all over that. How could you, with what you got, scheme up plays to create momentum, like Justin Fields was saying, a week ago now? Because that's what the Bears really need to do is just to establish some drives, not be in those 3rd and 9 and 3rd and long situations that you were mentioning earlier, Mason, manageable so that they can sustain drives and just build momentum and eventually, hopefully, score. So the X factor is really Bill Lazor here. And I would say as of late, it hasn't been going in his favor, but you got to work with what you got. And if you don't have anything to work with, then it makes it really tough to call a game. Even if you have good tackles, if you have, good wide receivers, a good quarterback, you need to have the foundation of that playbook set. And I think we know at this point that that's usually not the case for the Bears. All right, we'll go over to the other side, and I'll start off X factor on defense. Man, I think if you're the Bears defensively, you cannot. The X factor is going to be, I think it's more so on the 49ers' willingness to commit to their run game and how long the Bears can sustain it. Because I think a lot of stuff that usually when the 49ers are rolling offensively stems off of that. The play action passes opens up those windows for Jimmy Garoppolo. So the X factor on defense, can they almost make the 49ers one-dimensional and force them to pass because they're not getting anything on the ground? And even, stats say, like, you don't have to really run the ball effectively to have effective play action. But really, I think the X factor is making Jimmy Garoppolo kind of beat you. And so if you take away that run game, I think the 49ers will be more prone to maybe let that happen. And maybe this will be like a test, too, because I think the 49ers are, like, on the edge of wanting to turn it over to Trey Lance. And, hey, if you could beat this 49ers defense, maybe we'll let you stay in there for a bit longer. But the X factor for me, can the Bears mitigate the damage the 49ers do in the rushing attack so that Jimmy Garoppolo has to, he has to have the ball in his hands? And we know that they took that away when they were in the playoffs, had their playoff run. We saw it in the Super Bowl. And when he has the ball in his hand, he's forced to make plays. Usually doesn't go the 49ers way. What about you, Mason? Your X factor on defense?
So there's that saying, if you have two quarterbacks, you really have none. And I think we've actually kind of seen this a little bit with the 49ers because it's almost like Shanahan doesn't really know where he wants to go with it. Like, do I want Garoppolo? Do I want Trey? Like, how's my offense going to work? I think we can also change that a little bit to be, if you have two linebackers in one spot, you don't really have any. We saw that with the Buccaneers, that Alec Ogletree had 52% of the snaps, but you also have Dan Trevathan, who had 27% of the snaps. Part of that, obviously that doesn't add up to 100. So part of that is that fact that they had to be a nickel a lot, Mm-hmm. But if you have to pull off Trevathan off the field because you don't think he can handle coverage, same thing with Ogletree. You don't have DeAndre Houston-Carson anymore, or at least he didn't last week, being able to plug in as that big nickel, right? Being able to maybe be that hybrid linebacker safety role that he's been before because he had to start last week, and we're still not 100% sure what it's going to look like this week. So you really need your linebackers to be set, and also the Bears need to decide what the heck they're doing. Like, I mean, I remember when I was wrestling in high school, and there was this who's going to start at 165 back when I was a sophomore. Like, it sucked leading all the way up to the day that you're supposed to actually wrestle in the meet. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, I'm wrestling today. Okay, now I got to get more mentally ready. Oh, because it's hard to be 100% there. Or the opposite, where it's like, well, guess I'm not in this tournament. What's going on? So they got it. Are you riding with Ogletree? You're riding with Trevathan. And I don't think it's weird because it's not like you're deciding between a rookie or a young guy and an older person who's been there. Like, they're both older guys. Who's just performing better? Why the heck are we playing this game? Like, it's almost the Bears are too loyal, and it's like, all right, we got to get Trevathan his snaps back. We got to give him the chance to earn his spot. It's like, just stick with one of them, let them play, let the other one be the backup in case they get hurt, and let them get their mojo back.
I'm going to go on a quick tangent here about that loyalty because I think you see that in other areas. Look at the quarterback position. Why is Nick Foles still on this team? Like, he easily could have gone. Where did Joe Flacco go? I'm like blanking on where he got traded.
He got traded back to the Jets.
Oh, yeah. So it's like, why is Nick Foles on this team when he's inactive every single other week? But there's that commitment, that loyalty to a guy like that. There's a loyalty to Andy Dalton to start, and I think you are seeing that in Danny Trevathan, and just being what I think that was like Ryan Pace is one of his first big free agent acquisitions. If after the Super Bowl for Denver, so I think maybe that's where that connection goes. But quick tangent, getting off of it now, Mason. Are we gonna go pivotal matchup, the backbreaker, or your segment?
Let's hit backbreaker, and then backbreaker. Who's got the edge, and then we'll do it.
Okay, got it. Okay, cool. So I'll start actually, it's like I don't know if you have them both for offense and defense, but I'm gonna give it to you first. You take whatever, and I'll take the opposite.
Okay. So for me, my back-breaking matchup, and I'm gonna go in a weird way with this, is so for the defense is gonna be Kyle Shanahan versus Sean Desai. And for me, I'm doing that just because I do still think Kyle Shanahan is a good offensive mind. And I do think that he does pretty well playing chess, whereas we've kind of gotten to the point where we feel that Nagy's playing checkers, but I digress. Can Sean Desai play chess along with him? Because, he doesn't have George Kittle. He doesn't have his starting running back. He has Trey Sermon, but doesn't use him. So what's going on there? There's something funky happening. Brandon Ayuk led the team in receptions last year, but not this year. So there's something going on there. Can he get out of can Shanahan get out of whatever rut he's in and use the pieces he has? And can Desai match that chess that he's going to do? Because there's going to be a lot of misdirection. There's going to be all this movement. There's going to be tons of shifts. There's going to be, audibles, and there's all this stuff that's going to be happening. So Desai has to be ready to do that. And if he isn't communicating with the defense and doesn't have prepared for all of that stuff, it's going to be a long night, long afternoon.
It definitely will be. And, hopefully that's not the case, but we'll see. Like I said, two desperate teams are going to be playing at Soldier Field on Halloween night. Anything can happen. All right, my backbreaker on offense, and actually, Mason, you definitely talked about this a little bit, but this is going to be the backbreaker. It's going to be Nick Bosa lining up opposite of Jason Peters. And looking at Nick Bosa's breakdown, according to PFF, where he lines up, out of his 282 snaps on the D-line, 234 of them are on that right edge. That's Jason Peters' territory. That's where he's going to primarily line up. So if Jason Peters consistently loses that matchup in critical moments, third downs, it's not that, Jason Peters, I think, will hold his own for a majority of the game, like 60 snaps, Peters is going to win a majority of them, right? But it's those critical moments, third downs, those drive-killing sacks that put you behind the sticks. If Nick Bosa is able to create those, now we're in trouble. Because I think, look, you're expecting whoever's going to play at right tackle. It looks like at this point Alex Bars. Doesn't matter who's opposite of him, even though at times he's looked all right. You just kind of expect the opposite defensive lineman to win those matchups when on a given basis. Not every single play, not every single drive, but to win a couple of those. But if Jason Peters is not mitigating what Nick Bosa can do, man, then we're almost looking like the couple of seconds that Justin Fields has to throw. And it doesn't matter what play you call or what you're trying to do. You can't operate an offense like that. Nick Bosa, he can wreck games. We've seen him do it before. So that's going to be my back-breaking matchup. All right, now we go on to who has the edge. And this one should be fun because, like I said, this is two teams they're just not very good right now. So it's the Bears rushing attack versus the 49ers rushing defense. And you know what, Mason? I'm going to throw this one over to you. What you got here?
Until proven otherwise, I'm going to go with the Bears rushing offense. Apparently, it seems like so far you can plug in whatever running back you want and it's going to work. Obviously, I think that's not true. I think Khalil Herbert, and I've said this from the beginning since he got drafted, that he was a steal, that he would be a starting running back in pretty much almost any team. The Bears are very lucky to have him. And I think that's just going to continue. The way he runs is, he just complements what Montgomery does really well because he can just stick his foot in the ground, get inside on those inside zone runs. He rarely ever gets brought down for a loss. He's usually at least a standoff, not a 1-2 yard gain. And he just has this way of bouncing off defenders that would just work. You have to game tackle him. The first arm tackle is not going to get him down. And for whatever reason, the Bears line blocks like beasts when it's a rushing play, but when they're back on their heels in the pass, they that's where they struggle. So it's I would give it to the Bears rushing offense.
I agree. I wonder, did you give to the Bears rushing offense against the Buccaneers? Do you remember? Or I mean, if you did, kudos to you, because I had my, I don't know if the right word is doubt, but I thought like, hey, Damian Williams, he's gonna get the majority of the rushes. You're right all along about Khalil Herbert. I was not on the hype train, but now I'm on board as well. I got the Bears passing offense versus the 49ers passing defense. And look, this is a defense that, like I said, gives up a crap ton of penalties. And again, I want to bring up those numbers one more time here just to emphasize how bad the 49ers are. 14 total pass interference plays this season. For 11 have been accepted. Cost the 49ers 250 yards. Like, the Bears will gladly take every yard they can create and get it for free too, especially if you're showing that lack of discipline in the secondary. Like, the Bears will take that. But man, Mason, we haven't seen this passing game do anything. Whether it's because of the line protection, because receivers are not creating separation, maybe Justin Fields isn't making it's a culmination of everything. But Justin Fields said he feels it. I'm going with Justin Fields. I'm taking the Bears passing attack against the 49ers passing defense. Is that drinking the Kool-Aid? I don't know. I just have a feeling.
That's chugging the Kool-Aid.
That's chugging the Kool-Aid. It probably is, honestly, knowing this Bears passing attack. All right. We have the Bears rushing defense versus the 49ers rushing attack. Mason, who you got there?
Man, I want to take the Bears, but when you're, and it's weird that I'm saying this, but when he didn't have Robert Quinn last week, it's amazing how many tackles he made in the run game or against the run and tackles for loss or limiting because his pursuit was so good. So you definitely missed him last week. There's nothing guaranteed so far for him this week. Khalil Mack's most likely going to be out this week. And you think about those edge rushers as for the passing game, but they're really important in the running game, right? Setting the edge, being able to collapse down when the play goes away from you, and knowing Shanahan, he's going to run away from you. He's going to run, to the whatever's the most advantageous for his offense. So now you're trying to really hope Rokon Smith can fill holes well. You're really hoping that that your Keem Hicks is hurt too, so you don't have him there. Goldman has not been fantastic. He's been okay. He hasn't been fantastic. You're hoping that some of your rookie Gibson can fill in off the edge. You're hoping that Eddie Jackson actually can fill and make a tackle. That's a lot of hopes I just listed. And so when you have someone in Elijah Mitchell who has shown that he can run effectively, especially when you compare it again, like last week, they gave up 81 yards to Fournette and 63 yards to Jones. That's a lot of rushing yards. I don't know that you can hang your hat too heavily on this Bears rushing defense.
All right. So we have 2 for the 49ers, right? No, wait. I picked the Bears. So
2 for the
Bears. And now I should probably even up. It's the Bears. Oh, no. It's the Bears passing defense versus the 49ers passing offense. I'm not sold on what they're doing there in San Francisco with Jimmy Garoppolo. And this is weird. It just so happens that the 49ers could just be a worse team than the Bears are at this state. I mean, maybe that's what it is. I'm giving it to the Bears for their passing defense against this 49ers passing attack. Jimmy Garoppolo needs to prove me wrong, and maybe that helps they have a running game to complement what they want to do in the past, but I'll give it to the Bears even though they got torched by Tom Brady. I don't think, Jimmy Garoppolo ain't Tom Brady. They used to play on the same team, but that's about the only connection you can make there. All right, Mason, this is it. We need to make a name. Actually, people in the comment, you have to make a name for this. It worked. Yes, it worked last time because of the teams, but I don't know.
Yeah, this time I have dubbed it Bear Down or Finer 49er.
Ooh, okay.
Pulling these out of my every week, just switching it up.
Days. Okay, I like it. So, yeah, just real quickly, Mason, can you just explain exactly what's about to happen? And then people in the chat, get ready, get your whether you're watching this on your laptop, phone, you're ready to start getting those fingers ready to type.
Yeah, so in Bear Down or Finer 49er, the whole premise is I'm going to list off a comparison, a Bears player and a 49ers player. And then Nick is going to give me his gut feeling who he would rather have on his team. We're not taking injuries into consideration right now. It's less fun to do that because what's the point? That's just stuck in a week. We're not trying to be super stuck in a bubble here. So we're just kind of saying if we had to pick a player who we want, and then we'll do an offense, we'll do defense, and we'll might go back in between and judge Nick for one of his answers and try to figure out where he was going with it. So are you ready, Nick?
Let's do it.
All right. First off, Allen Robinson, Brandon Ayuk.
Oh, Allen Robinson.
Darnell Mooney, Deebo Samuel.
Oh, Deebo does so many good things. I'll go Deebo. Oh, God,
Raheem Mostert, David Montgomery.
David Montgomery.
Trey Sermon, Khalil Herbert.
Give me Khalil Herbert.
George Kittle, Cole Kmet.
I knew this was well, obviously. George Kittle, Iowa. There's no comparison.
Ross Dwelly, Cole Kmet.
Give me Cole. Give me Cole Kmet.
I like the pause on that. Jermaine Ifedi, Mike McGlinchey.
Oh, Mike McGlinchey.
He might be on the trade block. Mike McGlinchey, Tevin Jenkins.
Give me Tevin.
Justin Fields, Trey Lance.
Give me Justin Fields.
Andy Dalton, Jamie Garoppolo.
Ooh. Wow. Okay. I'll go Andy Dalton.
All right. So there are really two I would ask about. So Darnell Mooney, Deebo Samuel. What are your thoughts for picking Deebo there?
Yeah, I think Deebo, he does just bring a lot of versatility. Like he's like the heart and soul right now of the 49ers offense, especially with Kittle out. He's just been doing a lot of things for them, whether that's actually getting some rushing attempts, getting some hard catches over the middle of the field. And I know that, like, Darnell Mooney, I think, is going to be great, but he does provide, I think, just in, I don't know, Nagy's offense, but he just does a lot of things well. And I like that about him.
And then the other one, again, the wide receiver matchup, both with down years right now compared to the previous year. Allen Robinson, Brandon Ayuk. You picked A-Rob. Why?
I think we've seen it from Allen Robinson consistently outside of, like, really this season. And despite the quarterback he's produced, Brandon Ayuk, what is in year 2, year 3? Like, we haven't seen it from him. I don't know why he's having the year he is, but there's obviously something up. So I have to go with Allen Robinson there.
All right. Defensive side of the ball. All right. Akeem Hicks, Javon Kinlaw.
I'll go Akeem Hicks.
We got Eddie Jackson versus Jimmy Ward.
Give me Eddie Jackson.
All right. We got Eddie Jackson versus Tart. It's their other safety.
Yeah. I'll take Jackson too there.
Fred Warner versus Rokon Smith.
Oh, this is the one. And I'm going not even for bias. I'm going Roquan Smith here. I think I will explain, but yeah, I'm going Roquan.
Josh Norman, Kindle Vildor.
Josh Norman, Kindle Vildor. God, these are tough. I'll go Kindle. I don't know why, but I will.
Khalil Mack or Nick Bosa.
Oh, I'll go Mac. That might be a little biased, but I'll go Mac there.
Right. Well, that made my next question kind of irrelevant. If you had to package both Mac and Quinn for Nick Bosa, that was going to be my next. I was assuming you were going to say Nick Bosa.
Yeah, maybe that's where we go back and rewind this thing.
So we could just skip that one. All right. So let's go back. So why Khalil Mack over Nick Bosa, the younger guy who has been producing all year and has not been hurt really besides last year?
You know, Mason, sometimes you say things that you don't mean. No, it's, but we have seen a resurgence from Khalil Mack. And I know it doesn't work well this week because he is dealing with another injury, but we've been seeing another, I think a Khalil Mack that we're used to seeing. And yes, Nick Bosa is younger, but I think you'd be all right with having either one of those guys. Yes, one is a lot more money at this point in his career, Khalil Mack, but yeah, that's probably one where I wouldn't mind Nick Bosa at all either.
And then let's dive into, and this is one that I think all Bears fans can relate to, the Fred Warner versus Rokon Smith, right? Because Fred Warner's gotten some Pro Bowl nods, things like that. Rokon Smith has been left out. Why, without being a homer, is Rokon Smith your choice?
He does everything that Fred Warner would do. He just doesn't get recognition for it. Like that's honestly what it is. Like I know the Pro Bowls, it's kind of like that popularity contest, but Rokon Smith he's been phenomenal. And he doesn't get recognized. I think even around the league too. I don't know what the perception of him is on other, like when other teams face the Bears. It's like, I wonder how they think of Roquan, because I feel like he just never gets brought up. And I know it was in the Raiders game, that post game press conference. It's like he was flagged a couple of times. I think it was Mark Potash asked him, like, do you think you'll start to get recognized for, your name and maybe not get those bogus pass interference calls? He's like, I don't really care about that. It's like, I wonder if he ever will, because I don't know how people, the league, officials, players, opposing coaches, like how they even see him. But yeah, he's been phenomenal, and like him and Fred Warner in that same category.
Two things. One, Cliff, would you trade Mac and Quinn for Bosa? Number two, for Nick, I have a special bonus one for you. Special teams. Remember, injuries are not a part of this. Robbie Gould or Cairo Santos?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, Cairo Santos has been on freaking fire. I don't even know how many, straight field goals he's made up to this point, but I'm taking Cairo Santos. I have not felt any hesitancy or anything when he goes up to kick, because like I put like in my notes, his field goal is good, and that I hope I did not just jinx him for the Sunday. But
Ruined
that's
it. Oh my god, you ruined it.
We're gonna delete this portion. I'm gonna delete it all. It's not. It's other than being live right now. But that's just how confident I am in his ability to make kicks. And I'll take Cairo Santos.
I threw that in there because it's funny. You go back to the kicking derby and everything that was going on, and I specifically remember this. I don't know why this sticks out in my brain. I was walking in to play some pickup basketball Monday night, and there were some talks about like Robbie Gould trying to force his way out of the 49ers. And people were saying, does he want to come back to Chicago? And how badly I was like, oh my God, please let Robbie Gould come back to Chicago, and how much that has changed, and where we are now. Because yes, I would do the same thing. Cairo Santos has proven that he deserves the contract he got. I know people were a little annoyed at first because that was one of the first things the Bears did in the offseason was give him a bigger contract. They're, oh, there's bigger needs. There's money should go going elsewhere. It's like, do you not remember the kicking derby? Was that escaped your mind? So the fact that he's been automatic because he's been, like you said, I'm sitting up in the press box and I'm not really watching the field goal. I'm like, all right, let me just get my notes done for this next drive because he's been that automatic. And so it's just nice to see how far we've come. Really quick, because I asked him the question. Cliff said no, he would not trade Mac and Quinn straight up for Bosa just because it's a little bit too much. I could see that. All right, cool.
Yeah, you'd be out of two. You still need another edge rusher, but I feel good about Travis Gibson. Hey, that definitely works too. All right, Mason. Well, I mean, look, these are fun, and it's nice to see people interact and see what they think and like question what I'm even doing with when I say Mac over Bosa. And I agree with you right now. I agree with you, but that's what happens when you're on the fly and you don't. I have no idea the players that Mason puts there. I thought you were gonna ask me like Tristan Wirfs and Tevin Jenkins, because I'd still take Tristan Wirfs because again Iowa, and that's just me. But that was the only one. That's the only one I actually thought about. Like, could this be one? And it wasn't. But that's what makes this fun.
Well, I wouldn't ask that also because we already played the Buccaneers. So unless he gets traded this week.
Why was I thinking Tristan Wirfs? I'm done. All right, we're going to the next segment here. They're both red teams. I have no idea why I had a huge brain fart. Yeah, that makes some sense. Okay, we're going on to the last portion here of the show before things get out of hand here. Actually, Mason, this goes over to you next, so I'm shutting up.
All right, got a couple over-unders here. So, over-under, Justin Fields passing touchdown to interception ratio of 1.0.
1.0. I'll be optimistic and say over, but that's over. That's how I'm saying it.
So right now he has a rate, and there's a couple of games that screwed up this ratio, and I understand that. 0.33 for the season, 2 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, not great. His best ratio was 1.0 against the Raiders with 1 touchdown and 0 interceptions. I would probably say, I'm going to say push. I think it's going to be at 1.0 again.
Okay, I can see that for sure.
All right, over under. Bears allow 2.5 sacks.
Yeah, we'll go over that. I mean, the Bears are, they're not doing very good in that department right now. So, and we just talked about Nick Bosa for a good amount of that time. So we'll go over.
Yeah, 26 total sacks, leads the league in sacks given up, averaging 3.25 sacks per game over 7 weeks. I'm gonna have to say over because the stats say so. Why would you think any different right now? And of course too. I mean, there's like the ridiculous sacks where Justin scrambles and it's technically a 1 yard, half yard loss, even though he was trying to get there's those two. All right, over under. Trey Lance gets 10 snaps this game.
I'll go under on that, but I think it's going to be kind of around that mark there. But I'll go under the 10.
I think that's a good call. I'm going to say under as well. Week 1, he had 4. Week 3, he had 3. Garoppolo got hurt in week 4, so Lance played about 39 snaps. And then he played all the snaps in week 5. Obviously, then the bye week 6. And then in week 7, he got hurt himself. He was hurt himself, so Garoppolo got 100%. While I do think they're going to start ramping it up a little bit, I just feel like it's going to be he might get like 9, and then like the next week he might get like 12. 10 is a lot, I think. It also depends on game flow, right? I mean, maybe he gets more in the red zone, just like we thought Justin Fields would, but then also Justin Fields didn't have that happen, so who knows anymore. So we're going to flip the script. Over under, Bears sacks 3.0.
3.0. They had none against Tom Brady. There's going to be no Khalil Mack, most likely. Don't know about Robert Quinn. I'm going under the 3 on that one.
Yep, without Mack and Quinn, it's going to be hard. Bears have averaged 3 sacks per game exactly throughout the season. And the 49ers have only allowed 1.83 sacks per game. They've only given up 11 total. So they have a good offensive line. That's one of the reasons why they can plug and play some of the running backs that they do have and why you don't need Garoppolo normally to throw so much. Last one, over under 120 rushing yards for the 49ers.
Ooh, 120. If they stick to it, they're definitely capable of doing that. So I'll go over the 120 for the entire team. I think Elijah Mitchell gets a lot of those 120, but I'll go over.
Yep, like they gave up. Bears gave up, I believe, it was 140 yards last week to the Buccaneers. No, Elijah Mitchell's not Leonard Fournette or Jones, but he's a good running back. And there are some other running backs in that stable that are also going to be used. So, it's not just about him. Then Trey Lance, does he sneak in 14, 15 yards because he's got a play or two in there? Again, like his knee injury is weird. I don't think it's actually legit an injury. It's more of a, hey, let's just have him sit kind of a thing is what it seems like, because he looks pretty darn healthy with what you're seeing out of him. But yeah, that was over under.
I like them. They had me thinking there, Mason. So now we'll go over to our bold predictions for this Bears and 49ers game on Halloween night. And I'll start this off. Bold prediction is that the Bears I don't know how I want to phrase this, but they're going to be efficient throwing the ball downfield because they're going to have the 49ers commit 4 pass interference calls. They had 5 against the Colts for 97 yards. I think they'll get 4 for 100 yards. So those are deep. They are committing penalties and they're giving the Bears free yards. And that's exactly what they need because that passing attack can use any help that it can get. What's your bold prediction there, Mason?
So as always, I have one for offense and defense, and I'm doing this off the top of my head because I forgot to write them down during my Disney trip. But for offense, I'm going to have Cairo Santos kicks 3 field goals and makes all 3 of those field goals. Right now, the Bears offense just last couple of games has not really been able to get into the red zone. And so one of your best, and it's just awful to say, but one of your best weapons, which is your kicker, just hasn't been able to be used. And he's been great at touchbacks. I mean, that was a concern I know for myself last year, but that hasn't been an issue this year. 3 field goals by Cairo Santos. And on defense, my bold prediction, very bold, is 2 interceptions by the defense as a whole. One of them being, again, DeAndre Houston-Carson. He just seems to be around the ball a lot recently, and he's playing well. He's playing within the defense as it's created. I also find this to be pretty bold because I don't think the Bears are going to get as much pressure as they normally do without Mack and then questionable Quinn. Up next, not so bold.
Yeah, not so bold. I again don't have anything planned, but I knew it was coming up. I'll say a not so bold prediction though. Khalil Herbert goes for his 2nd straight 100-yard rushing game. The way he's rushing and the way that the Bears are utilizing their offense, they need to rush the ball. That's all they can do at this point. So I don't know if it's too bold now to say that Khalil Herbert, who just rushed for over 100 yards against Tampa Bay, can do it against the 49ers team. So going not so bold, Khalil Herbert gets 100 yards rushing.
It's funny how that's changed, right? Because last week my bold prediction offense was that he was going to get 100 yards rushing, and now it's become not so bold. This is just Khalil Herbert. This is what he does. Not so bold prediction for the offense. That's how do I want to phrase this? That Khalil Herbert will catch 2 passes, one of which will be for over 20 yards.
Okay.
Thought process being, I think they're going to sneak a screen in there finally. It just makes sense, especially against a team that has a Nick Bosa, that has a Fred Warner, that has a Armstead that can be pretty aggressive. So try to take some of that aggression off by throwing a screen such as that. So at least 2 receptions, one of which at least 20 yards. Nice explosive play there in the passing game. And then on defense, not so bold prediction. The Bears will be under 50% in terms of red zone scores allowed. So they're going to kind of go back to their old form a little bit, right? They're going to mainly force either keep them out of the red zone entirely or, get back to that bend but don't break mentality.
Hey, both would bode well in the Bears' favor if that happened. All right, let's predict the MVP. I'll go first, and I think this is going to be not a high scoring affair. Like, that shouldn't be a shock to anybody, but I think the MVP is going to be on defense, and I think Rokon Smith's going to have a huge part of why the Bears should have or could have success on defense, especially knowing that the 49ers are going to want to run the ball with whoever is their running back behind that offensive line that has protected, Jimmy Garoppolo pretty well this season. But I think when it all comes down to it, Rokon Smith's going to have, his fingerprints on why this defense has success against the 49ers. Mason, who do you got for your MVP?
My MVP, I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anybody, is going to be Khalil Herbert. I just think you have to ride him at this point. You have to set up that play action, and to do that, you really do have to commit to running the ball. Like I said, I hope that they try to take some of that aggressive pass rush and use it against them by slipping some screens in there. So, I wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden we woke up Monday morning, we're talking about Khalil Herbert having 150 all-purpose yards because, he had 100 yards like Nick predicted on the ground, and then he was able to sneak in another 50 in the passing game. If they can actually use, their running back in the passing game, that would be quite a phenomenon. And obviously, to keep things in perspective, yes, Herbert has dropped a pass here or there too, so he needs to catch that ball. Right now, none of the receivers have shown anything for me to think that they're going to be able to get more than their traditional 4 catches. Same thing in the tight end. And the defense is just, and I think for the most, we're going to be the defense. They're going to be relatively consistent with what they've been. If there's going to be a shift, it has to come from the offense.
All right, I like it. So now we get to the competition, I guess, the game picks. And since Will is not here, I'm going to go ahead and give his first. And, drum roll, whatever it may be, the Bears. He has the Bears on Halloween night winning this game at Soldier Field 21-20. So obviously a close one by the one point game. So there's Will's pick. And I don't even know. I know I'm in the lead, but I don't even know what our records are at this point. But that's where Will's going. Mason, I'm going to hand it off to you. Who do you got winning this game and why?
What would be the worst trick for Bears fans right now? That would be a Bears victory because it just keeps this train going. Right now, Bears fans are hoping more or less for losses because it's going to look terrible for Matt Nagy. But for whatever reason, whether it's his motivational style, whether it's the players that they have, they seem to just get wins when it gets really bad. Yes, there was that 6-game losing streak, of course. But they turned that around and they made the playoffs last year. And they made it. They just do these things to keep it going. And the 49ers are not a great team right now. They're very pedestrian. Not to say that anything's guaranteed, of course. So with everything we talked about today, with Khalil Herbert, how he is, how the defense is, it's not Tom Brady on the other side, basically. You don't have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and all these, really, and OJ Howard and Cameron Brate and all these really good players and Leonard Fournette. I can keep going. This is ridiculous. On that other side, that the defense is going to be able to do enough to keep them in it. And so therefore, and based on my prediction earlier that Kairos Hampton's going to have 3 field goals goes into my score. Final 16-13 Bears.
All right, we got 2 for the Chicago Bears against the San Francisco 49ers, who are on a 4-game losing streak, and I believe are favored at Soldier Field. So crazy how that works. But I also have the Bears winning. Like the Bears find a way to beat these teams that they should beat, and that's just how they've been for a while now. And like you said, you made a good point there, Mason. Like they find ways to turn things around. And you know what? I would give them credit, even though it's a bad 49ers team, with everything that's going on with in terms of injuries on that front seven for the Bears, not having your head coach actually in the building because of COVID, and to pull out a victory. I think that does show some, resolve and just, the ability to battle adversity. So I have the Bears winning 20-18. Again, I think we all see this being a close game because they're both not very good teams right now. All right, Mason, confidence meter. I'll start off here. Am I confident that the Bears will win? Obviously, by my score of 2018, not really, but I'll give it like a 5.5. Like I could see the 49ers easily winning this game too. Like I said, they're desperate. 4 game, they're gonna go on a 5-game losing streak. Like that's I say that last year. Like Bears are gonna go on a 5. Yes, they did. They did. They went 6. So I'm going with the 5.5 that the Bears can handle business. But like I just said, all the things that the Bears are going through, I can see why they can lose too.
With that 20 points the Bears are scoring, is that with a Cairo Santos missed extra point, or is that with 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals?
That's a good question. I just put the number 20 up there, however they get it. Maybe there's a safety in there, so maybe there's 3. Who knows? But I don't even know how that 20 happens. I did envision the 49ers getting a safety somewhere. I don't even know if that makes sense, but
As a sidebar, aren't you feeling that at some point soon the Fields is going to get sacked for a safety? It just seems like they get pinned a lot in that 5, and it's ridiculous.
It's bound to happen, and maybe we just put it out into the atmosphere there, and now it is.
All right. Well, anyway, back to the other 5, right down the middle of 5. They're so close to who they are. They're so similar. Again, we talked about that Spider-Man meme, them pointing at each other. Very based on the run game. The wide receivers have been a little funky. Tight ends, not where they want to be. I mean, obviously, yes, 49ers is because George Kittle's hurt versus for the Bears, it's because the tight ends have been more or less either not used or incompetent. I'm going to straight up say it because, I mean, Cole Kmet, you got to catch that one first down pass that hit you right in the hands on National Tight End Day. So what are you doing? They're so similar. And it really is going to come back down to coaching and just general desire for the most part. I think having the fact that the thing that makes me a little more confident at that 50-50 mark versus being not confident in it is the fact that Justin Fields exudes this confidence. He's taking control of it a little bit more with, the whole Zoom thing with the wide receivers. Matt Nagy isn't there. So maybe there's this, we're going to step up for our coach kind of. I think the players for the most part still like Nagy. I don't think they just hate him, especially with how they talk about him. And it's when you come back down to, again, it's just that there's that it's bound to happen when you're as skilled as Justin Field is. It's bound to happen at some point. Are you surrounded with the right stuff? One would have thought that the Cleveland game would have been enough for that, but maybe it wasn't. And this Buccaneers game is the thing that finally makes the coaching staff say, okay, we need to now do A is not working. Let's do B and C.
I hope that's the case, Mason, because I'm tired of seeing, like, there was a hit Justin Fields took in that Buccaneers game where he's laying down, his hands all the way back, and it looks like his eyes are shut too. And it's just like, can we get this guy some help? Can we not have that happen again? It's only his, 5th, 4th game, whatever it is now at this point, starting, and let's not break this guy that I think has all the potential in the world. All right, Mason, just to kind of wrap up final thoughts here, we'll be at Soldier Field on Halloween to cover this game. I'm excited for it. Just to see, what this Bears team can do. And I know I'm setting the bar real low too for what this Bears team actually does and what is going to transpire on Sunday. I'm excited to be there at Soldier Field to see what actually happens. And, if you celebrate Halloween, have a happy Halloween, but I'll leave it at that. Mason, what you got?
I think we say this almost every week. this is a season-defining game, I feel like. If you lose to the 49ers, and especially how you lose to the 49ers would be important, that's a ceiling of fate. If you get blown out by the 49ers, Matt Nagy, you're done. If you can beat the 49ers, keep the ship afloat, now all of a sudden you have the reeling Steelers on the schedule ahead of you as well. It's a totally different going into the bye. And the Ravens are weird. Like, they have games where they just destroy the teams, and then they also have games where they either lose or they beat the Lions by 2. So now all of a sudden you're having a slightly different conversation, right, with a win here. And whether you may not like that as a fan, you may hate that, you may love it because at the end of the day you want them to win. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens. The post game feeling, the pressers, how they react to it is going to be really interesting. But yeah, if you're celebrating Halloween, have fun. Check your kids' candy. Crazy people out there. Make sure there's no razor blades and crazy stuff in there. And let your kids have the candy. Skip the house that gives out apples and toothbrushes. You don't need to go out that house.
Oh, I can't even imagine getting a toothbrush and apples and trick or treating. Like, what? This is my day to go crazy, and I still do. So I'll buy candy for myself and go off and eat a bunch of it. But thanks everybody for tuning in for this preview show. Look, Mason, it's only 2 of us, and we're going on an hour and 20. Like, I don't know how we do this. Like, what is there to talk about with the Bears? They got blown out 38-3 last week, but yet we're here breaking it down, previewing this matchup, and this is after you getting back from Disney, me getting back from a wedding, and we're still here to provide that content. But hey, feel free, and no, not feel free. You better go out and buy some Owen with our code TCA20. Have great products there. Use BetUS, Chicago 125. Use those things, and even screenshot it when you get like your package of Owen or whatever it may be, and we'll post it on our Instagram page and just share it. And speaking of social media, go follow Mason. You see where I'm trying to point. I don't even know how that works. Yeah, there it is. At West Sports PT. Follow him there on Twitter. And then also follow me on Twitter at Nicholas Moriano, the Chicago Audible. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I don't know if we have other social media that I don't know about. Go follow. Just look up the Chicago Audible. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in for another episode. You'll hear from us after the conclusion of the Bears 49ers game. But until then, bear down, Chicago.